No one saw the moment that changed everything. Not the mother washing dishes with one eye on the window, not the neighbors sipping coffee on their porches, and definitely not the town of Cedar Hills, where nothing truly unexpected ever happened. A 5-year-old boy who hadn't spoken a single word in 3 months stepped outside on a quiet morning, wandered into the backyard, and found something breathing inside a shattered flower pot. Something broken, something terrifying, something that should never have been there. And when he knelt beside it and whispered, "Hello," the world began to unravel. Cedar Hills, Oregon, was the kind of town where people still waved to each other at red lights and kids played outside until the streetlights flickered on. It was quiet, simple, predictable. At the very edge of Maple Street sat a modest blue house with peeling white trim and a backyard just big enough for a garden, a leaning old shed, and a few pots where flowers used to bloom. Inside that house, Sarah Reynolds stood in the hallway watching her son build a tower out of wooden blocks. Eli was 5, bright, gentle, and completely silent. He hadn't said a word since the accident. Since the rainy Tuesday afternoon when a pickup truck lost control at an intersection and took his father's life. They called it selective mutism. Trauma-related, he could speak, there was no physical issue. He just didn't. Not since the funeral. Not even to her. "Breakfast is ready, sweetheart," she said softly, kneeling beside him. Eli looked up and nodded. He gently placed the final block on top of the tower. He didn't knock them down anymore. He never did now. They had to stay upright, unbroken, untouched. Safe. Sarah had taken extended leave from the clinic. The bills were piling up, sure. But her son was falling into silence like a stone into a well, and she wasn't about to let him disappear. After breakfast, banana cinnamon oatmeal, his favorite Tally wandered to the back door. Sarah followed him with her eyes. He went out every morning, always staying within view, always quiet. The sun painted the backyard in gold. The grass was still damp. Eli's bare feet padded toward the overgrown corner behind the shed, where last year's tomato plants had withered in a cracked terracotta pot, except today. The pot wasn't empty. Eli stopped mid-step. There, curled into the broken planter, like it was trying to vanish into the earth, was a dog, a big one, a German shepherd, its ribs pressed against dull matted fur. Its paws were raw. Blood, dried mud, and something like burns clung to its body. Its eyes were shut. Its chest barely moved. For a long, breathless moment, Eli just stared. He should have run. He'd always been afraid of dogs, especially the big ones, but fear didn't come. Not today. What he felt was something else. He stepped forward slowly. Quietly, the dog didn't move. It didn't growl. It didn't even twitch. But up close, Eli could see something strange around its neck, a thick metallic collar. Not like a normal pet collar. No buckle, no tags, just smooth silver metal. Too tight, too cold-looking. "Hello," Eli whispered. It shocked him to hear his own voice. He hadn't meant to speak. The dog's ears shifted. Its eyes opened, amber and glassy, but still aware. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, boy and dog. Grief and survival. Two creatures who had forgotten what kindness felt like. Then came the sound. Not a bark, not a growl, just a soft, pitiful whimper. Eli knelt down, his small hand stretching toward the dog. The shepherd lifted its head weakly, touched its nose to the boy's palm. "Warm, real, you're hurt," Eli whispered. The dog's tail gave a faint wag. It wasn't much, but it was enough. From the kitchen window, Sarah saw her son sitting in the grass beside the broken planter. She nearly dropped her coffee mug. A dogga, large, filthy, possibly dangerous dog, was resting its head on Eli's lap, and Eli was talking. She opened the back door slowly. "Eli," she called, trying to keep her voice calm. The dog stiffened, its eyes sharpened, ready to bolt. But Eli looked up and said something that shattered the world she thought she understood. "Hurt, Mommy. We have to help him." They were the first words he'd spoken to her since the funeral. Want more incredible, real-life inspired animal stories that will leave you breathless? Subscribe to Brave Animals, now where loyalty, courage, and love come alive through stories. You'll never forget, Sarah walked barefoot through the grass. The closer she got, the more details came into focus. The dog wasn't just injured, it was wrecked, malnourished. Its paws cracked, legs scarred, and that collar. It gave her chills. "I need you to come inside," she said gently. "Call a vet." "No," Eli said, louder this time. "He's scared. He needs us." Sarah hesitated. The dog was watching her, aware, intelligent, and sad. That was it. Sad, not wild, not threatening, wounded. In every sense of the word. She brought out an old wagon from the garage. Together, they helped the dog in. He didn't resist. If anything, he seemed relieved to be carried inside. She laid down towels and blankets. Never left his side. The dog's breathing evened out. He followed Eli's voice like a compass, like it meant something to him. "What's his name?" Sarah asked. "I think it's Scout," Eli said, and when he said it, the dog's ears lifted. His tail moved. He made that same soft whimper. "Scout," Eli repeated. "His name is Scout." Sarah felt the hair on the back of her neck stand up. How did Eli know that? "He told me," he said simply, with his eyes. Later that night, after Eli had gone to bed with Scout curled beside him like a guardian angel, Sarah examined the collar again. It had no buckle, no seam. It wasn't made of leather or nylon. It was fused, seamless, like someone had built it directly onto his neck. A tiny screen embedded in the side flickered dimly symbols, numbers, then black again. Sarah had never seen anything like it. Not in her years as a nurse, not in her life. Something told her. Scout hadn't just wandered into their yard by accident, and whatever he had escaped from, whatever had put that collar on him, might not be far behind. Outside, the wind stirred. Through the leaves, Scout, now sleeping at the foot of her son's bed, twitched his ears. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. But deep inside, something in him had started to wake up again, and for the first time in months, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt since her husband's death. Not fear, not grief. Hope, hope, hope. Resting in her living room wearing a collar that didn't belong in any normal world, and curled up beside her son, her silent boy. Now, speaking again was a dog who might have been built for something far more dangerous than love, yet chose it anyway. Scout slept through the night like he'd collapsed into a world that had stopped chasing him, though every now and then his paws would twitch as if he were running in his dreams. Sarah sat in the hallway just outside Eli's room, knees pulled to her chest, her mind looping through the same impossible questions. Where did this dog come from? How did Eli know his name? And what was that collar really for? She hadn't called animal control, not yet. Something told her this wasn't the kind of situation that needed a guy in a van and a clipboard. This needed time, quiet, caution, and if she was being honest, maybe she just wasn't ready to let go of the miracle happening in her living room the next morning. Eli was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the floor beside Scout. He was talking softly, telling the dog about the treehouse his dad had started building before the accident. Scout was listening, his head tilted, his eyes warm and watchful. Sarah stood in the doorway, half expecting it all to disappear like some dream unraveling with the morning light. But it was real. Scout was still there, and so was her son speaking. They gave Scout a shallow bowl of warm chicken broth. He lapped it up without hesitation, though his movements were slow and careful, like every motion required calculation. Eli giggled when the dog licked his hand clean. The sound startled Sarah. It had been months since she'd heard her son laugh. "He's getting better already," Eli said. Sarah wasn't so sure. The wounds on Scout's legs weren't just scrapes from wandering the woods. They were too clean, too precise. Some looked like burns, others like scars from needles. And that collar? She checked it again while Scout rested, this time with gloves on. It didn't budge. No clasps, no buttons. The material didn't feel like any metal she'd ever seen. Embedded on one side was a tiny dark screen, dead silent now. But when she brought her phone close, it interfered with her signal. Her music app glitched. Notifications vanished. What kind of dog wears a collar that scrambles cell signals? Later that afternoon, after a trip to the garden for some sunshine, Scout followed Eli back inside without prompting. No leash, no commands, he just knew. When Eli dropped a toy car under the couch, Scout carefully stretched his paw underneath and nudged it out. When Sarah's pen rolled beneath the fridge, Scout retrieved it before she even asked. She watched, stunned. There had been no training, No cues. He's really smart, Eli said, beaming. That's not normal, Sarah whispered. That's something else. Scout walked to the couch, laid down, and rested his chin on Eli's foot. That night, Sarah did what any anxious mom in 2025 would do. She took photos of Scout's collar and uploaded them to a private forum she followed for ER nurses, who often saw strange injuries or undocumented tech. A few members were married to others were veterans themselves. Most said the same thing. Never seen anything like that. Looks custom, possibly military grade. One message stood out. I saw something similar during a joint base transfer a few years back. Experimental K9 unit, but that collar, that's beyond anything we ever used. Be careful. Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine. She was about to close her laptop when a breaking news article popped up on her feed. Security breach at research facility outside Carson Ridge, no details released. Carson Ridge was just 2 hours north. The article was vague, no names, no images, just that there had been a breach 3 days ago. 3 days ago was exactly when Scout showed up in her backyard. The next day, they tried taking Scout to the vet, or they would have if the road leading to the clinic hadn't been flooded out by a burst pipe. Sarah's car had been making strange grinding sounds for weeks, and she didn't trust it for the 3-hour detour to the next emergency vet. We can't leave him, Eli said quietly. He'll die. Sarah sighed. Her nurse instincts screamed for diagnostics, meds, wound cleaning, but looking at Scout Nouse's tail, giving soft, hopeful thumps on the floor, she made a decision that surprised even herself. We'll keep him inside, she said, just until we figure out a plan. That night, something changed. Sarah was chopping carrots for soup when someone knocked on the front door. The knock was firm, sharp, rhythmic. Not the way neighbors knocked. Scout, who had been sleeping next to Eli's chair, jolted awake. He didn't bark. He didn't growl. He froze, then slowly rose to his feet. Each movement deliberate, controlled. His body stiffened onto with fear, but alertness, like a soldier snapping to attention. Who is it? Eli whispered, sensing the change in the air. Sarah stepped to the door and peered through the peephole. A man stood on the porch. Black jacket, broad shoulders, close-cropped hair, military posture. He held up a badge, Animal Recovery Services. Sarah's breath caught. She kept the chain lock fastened and cracked the door an inch. Can I help you, ma'am? The man said. We've had reports of a missing German Shepherd in this area. Large, possibly injured, brown, black coat. Have you seen anything like that? Behind her, Scout let out a sound. Not a bark, not a growl, not low, controlled, threatening. No, Sarah said evenly. Haven't seen anything like that. The man's smile was tight. Are you sure? This animal is very important to its owners. I'm sure, she replied. But if I do see something, I'll let you know. He slipped a card through the door crack. Substantial reward, no questions asked. As soon as the door closed, Scout walked to the entryway with unnerving grace. He didn't sniff the floor. He didn't pace. He just stood there, eyes locked on the front door, as if waiting for it to explode. Sarah knelt beside Eli. Was that man here for Scout? Eli nodded slowly. They want to take him back, he said, but he doesn't want to go, Scout returned. To Eli's side and lay down again, resting his head on the boy's foot as he always did. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, the business card still on her nightstand. She'd searched the company. Animal Recovery Services. It had a website but no address, no phone listings outside the one on the card, no social media, no employee directory. It felt fake. Then came the sound, not loud, not obvious, but clear footsteps, soft, careful. Circling her house, she slipped from the bed and moved to the front window. 2 figures, dark clothing. One of them was the same man from the porch. The other was a woman, moving with the same military precision. They weren't knocking this time. They were checking windows, testing locks, taking photos. She opened her mouth to scream, but never got the chance. Scout appeared beside her, silent. As a shadow, his posture was different now. Low, controlled, lethal, not just alert, ready. She looked into his amber eyes and saw something she hadn't seen before. Not fear, but strategy. This wasn't a stray dog. Not anymore. This was a soldier. A weapon. One who had run far from whatever had made him that way, and chosen to stay in a place where he was loved. Sarah wrapped her robe tighter and sat back down. Heart pounding, she needed a plan. These people weren't going away. Scout had brought something into their lives, something bigger than him, bigger than any of them, and it was only a matter of time before it came crashing through their front door. The next morning, Sarah barely touched her coffee. Her hands still shook as she stared at the card left on the kitchen counter. Animal Recovery Services. It sounded official, professional, government adjacent, but something about it felt off, like a name invented to sound trustworthy. No address, no social footprint, just a single line. Return of property eligible for reward, no questions asked. Double quotes, property, not pet, not animal, property. She looked over at the living room, where Scout lay curled beside Eli. The boy had fallen asleep mid-story, his arm draped protectively over the dog's broad shoulders. Scout's eyes were closed, but Sarah had noticed something strange. He never seemed to fully sleep. His ears twitched with every passing car. His nose flared whenever someone walked by outside. Even his breathing changed depending on where Eli was in the room. It wasn't just alertness, it was instinct, training, the kind that didn't come from a pet. Store obedience class. That afternoon, while Eli napped and Scout kept watch by his bedroom door, Sarah opened her laptop and searched deeper. She plugged in keywords: experimental K9, cybernetic collar, military tracking device, and sifted through obscure forums and restricted academic articles. Finally, something clicked. A thread on a whistleblower site referenced a classified project at a research facility 2 hours north. The post was old, almost buried, and most of the comments had been deleted, but one phrase stuck with her. Xeris prototypes were trained for recon and urban survival. Behavior suggests emergent, independent decision-making. Dangerous only if cornered. She leaned back in her chair. Xeris prototypes. Scout wasn't just a trained dog. He wasn't even just a military asset. He was something else entirely. That night, she tucked Eli in early. Scout curled beside him, resting his chin on the boy's legs like he had since day one. Sarah didn't bother locking the front door. She secured it, double locks, curtains drawn, porch lights off. She didn't sleep, not really. Instead, she sat on the couch in darkness, mug in hand, eyes fixed on the hallway, waiting. The knock came at 2:47 a.m. Firm, steady, intentional. Not the knock of a neighbor. Scout was on his feet before the third tap. His ears shot forward. His body froze, then shifted into a low fluid stance, quiet, ready, like someone had flipped a switch inside. Sarah grabbed the baseball bat she kept behind the pantry door. Her hands trembled as she stepped toward the front of the house. The knock came again, this time with more force. Sarah Reynolds. A deep voice called. She looked through the PEEPHOL, same man. Same black jacket. This time he wasn't alone. A woman stood beside him, taller, her arms folded across her chest. Her eyes scanned the porch like she was calculating entry points. Sarah didn't open the door. "We know you have him," the man said. "We're not here to hurt anyone, but that animal belongs to us." Scout let out a low, rolling growl that vibrated through the floorboards. Sarah stepped away from the door and crouched beside him. His eyes met hers in them. She didn't see panic. She saw fear, deep, intelligent fear. Not of being caught, but of what would happen if he was taken back. She moved fast, woke Eli, packed a bag, grabbed cash, IDs, birth certificates. Scout stayed by the front door, unmoving, tail low, head high, guarding. "Are we running away?" Eli asked, blinking sleep from his eyes. Sarah looked at her son, this little boy who had finally come back to life because of a creature no one seemed to understand. "We're going on a trip," she said. "Somewhere safe." By dawn, the car was loaded. Eli climbed into the back seat, Scout curling beside him like they'd done it 100 times. As the engine started, Sarah looked one last time at their house, the home where her husband had died, where Eli had gone silent, and where everything had changed because of one broken dog in a flower pot. She turned the wheel and drove away without looking back. The cabin was her father's, hidden in the mountains, surrounded by pine and silence. Off-grid, no neighbors for miles. It hadn't been used in years, but it still stood solid wood-burning stove, hand-pumped well. Backup generator. Sarah had spent summers there as a girl, climbing trees and pretending the forest was magic. Now, it might be the only place left where they could breathe. Scout adapted instantly. He moved through the woods like he belonged, their ears rotating toward sounds only he could hear, nose twitching at scents in the wind. But even in the wild, he never strayed far from Eli. He played, he fetched, he even started wagging his tail when Eli laughed. But every night, like clockwork, Scout posted himself at the cabin door. Back straight, eyes sharp, as if expecting something. To arrive in the dark one afternoon, Eli was brushing Scout's thickening coat. He'd already gained noticeable weight when his fingers caught on something unusual behind the collar. "Mommy," he said, "there's something here." Sarah knelt down and felt it to a thin flap of skin near the collar, like scar tissue hiding something. She pressed gently. A small compartment opened camouflaged. Beneath fur, inside, a folded piece of what looked like plastic film, no wider than a matchbook, light as paper, covered in strange symbols and faint markings. Sarah turned it over. The back contained a chip data, maybe instructions. She held it up to the light, heart pounding. "What is it?" Eli asked. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I think this is what those people really want." That night, she sat by the fire long after Eli fell asleep, staring at the film. Scout sat beside her, watching her closely like he wanted her to understand something he couldn't say aloud. "Is this why you ran?" she asked softly. "Because of what's on this?" Scout laid his head in her lap and closed his eyes. His body was calm, but his breathing wasn't. It was shallow. The next morning, Sarah made a choice. She copied the film onto a flash drive, uploaded a partial scan to a secure anonymous cloud folder, sent it to one contact, her former nursing school roommate, now working at a law firm specializing in government ethics. No context, just a subject line. "If anything happens to me, open this." That evening, while Eli built a fort out of couch cushions, Scout paced the perimeter of the cabin. Something was wrong. He wouldn't stop circling. He sniffed the air, ears stiff, paws silent against the wood floors. At 11:42 p.m., Scout bolted to the front door and growled. Sarah's heart dropped. She grabbed her phone. No service, not even a single bar. She peeked through the curtain. Nothing, just forest and night. But Scout didn't stop growling. His muscles tensed. His tail straightened. He stared out the window like he could feel what was coming. Sarah turned to Eli, who had come into the room, rubbing his eyes. "Why is Scout upset?" he asked. Before she could answer, a flash movement to figures, again circling, but this time just behind, his small hand resting on the dog's back. And for the first time since all of this began, they weren't alone. The first sound wasn't the knock, it was the silence. No wind, no birds, no crickets. Just the unnatural quiet that falls before something breaks. Sarah stood at the front window, breath held, his ears locked forward, his eyes laser-focused on the trees just beyond the cabin's clearing. "Mommy," Eli whispered, clutching her robe. "Is someone out there?" She knelt beside him and whispered, "Stay close to me, no matter what." Outside, shadows moved between the pines, purposeful, fluid, to figures. Maybe 3. One of them stepped into view. Agent Williams, same black jacket, same calm posture. This time, no fake smile. He was here to take Scout. And he wasn't knocking anymore. Scout moved first. Not toward the front door, but toward the back. He turned to look at Sarah. "You doing?" Eli asked. Sarah stared at the dog and suddenly understood. "He's trying to lead them away," she said. "He thinks if he runs, they'll follow." Scout's tail gave a small, sad wag. Sarah's throat tightened. "No, we're not doing that." She grabbed his collar knot to pull him, but to stop him. "We stick together," she said firmly, just enough to memorize his face. Then, something extraordinary happened. He whimpered. A soft, layered sound. Not just instinct, but communication. "Goodbye. Thank you. I love you." But before Scout could act, glass shattered at the front of the cabin. A flashbang-style device hit the floor, fizzing with light and sound, though thankfully without detonation. A warning they weren't being cautious anymore. Sarah's military dad had taught lessons in years. But now, adrenaline took over. She grabbed Eli and pushed him behind the couch. "Stay low, don't move." Scout stepped between them and the door, his body low, his posture shifting, not like a dog anymore, like a soldier. The door slammed open. For figures in tactical gear stormed in with terrifying speed, black boots, matte helmets, weapons drawn. The leader, Agent Williams, held up his hand to signal halt. "Stand down," he ordered. "Send out the asset, and no one gets hurt." Asset. That word again. Scout growled low, steady, terrifyingly. "Controlled X-47, Williams said, addressing Scout directly. "This is a command." Scout didn't move, didn't blink, only growled deeper. Eli stood up from behind the couch. Sarah reached to pull him back, but he stepped forward. "He's not your machine," the boy said, voice clear. "He's not broken. He's free." The room froze. Even the agents hesitated. "Son," Williams said, tone patronizing, "you don't understand what that thing is. It's not a pet. It's not a friend. It's a prototype. A weapon. Me, and I love him." Scout moved slightly, positioning himself in front of Eli, tail lowered. "Stance protective," one of the other agents spoke into a comm unit. "Asset has formed an emotional bond. Recommend immediate capture and full wipe." Full wipe. Sarah's stomach dropped. They weren't just taking Scout. They were going to erase him. Everything, his instincts, his choices, his memories of Eli. "No," she said. "You're not touching him. You have no authority here," Williams replied coldly. "You're harboring government property." "Government property," she snapped. "Modified him. You welded a device to his neck. What you created wasn't a pet, it was a prisoner." "X-47 represents 5 years of classified research," he replied. "He is a cyber-canine hybrid capable of advanced surveillance and combat. What you see as affection is corrupted programming." Scout growled again. Williams raised his weapon. "Return with us, or we remove you by force." And then something changed. Scout stepped forward, not to attack, but to stand calm, proud, deliberate before the man who had once controlled him. He looked up at Williams, then lifted a paw and placed it on the agent's gloved hand. Not aggression, not fear, a gesture of forgiveness or defiance, or both. Williams faltered. His expression cracked. Just for a second. Just long enough, Scout stepped back and did something that shocked everyone. He reached behind his own ear, manipulating something small, precise, hidden. Fused to his neck came off. Piece by piece, it fell to the cabin floor with metallic clinks. One piece, then another. Then the main ring. The agents froze. Williams stared. Scout stood there collarless, vulnerable, exposed. Wires and tiny ports were visible beneath his fur. Evidence of surgery, engineering, pain. He should have looked weaker, but somehow, without the collar, Scout looked more real, more alive. "What did you do?" Williams hissed, raising his voice into his cum. "Command, we've lost control. Collar's been disengaged." "Deadman trigger," he said. When removed, it sent a broadcast. Sarah felt her heart stop. "The data," she whispered. "Everything he's been carrying, it was gone?" "No, not gone. Released." Scout looked up at Eli. His tail wagged once. "You did it," Eli whispered. Williams's radio crackled. "Sir," a voice said, unidentified transmission confirmed. "Data leak has reached multiple media outlets. It's everywhere." Williams's face turned white. Billions of dollars in research. Years of secrecy, gone, because one dog chose to be more than a weapon. Because he chose freedom, it doesn't matter, Williams said through clenched teeth. "You're still a security risk." He raised his weapon, and Scout lunged, not to kill, not to maim, but to knock Williams down. Hard, he pinned the agent to the cabin floor with terrifying precision. He didn't bite, he didn't attack, he just stood over him. UNBLINKING.judging.sirens cut through the air. Low at first, then louder, then unmistakable. Outside helicopters, black. Military spotlights sweeping through the trees. A voice boomed from above. "This is Colonel Maria Martinez, United States Army Criminal Investigation Division. You are surrounded. Lay down your weapons and surrender immediately." Williams looked toward the window, then back at Scout, and in his eyes, something cracked again. Pride, shame, no one would ever know. He whispered something no one could hear and closed his eyes. The agents surrendered without resistance as they were led away in handcuffs. Scout stood in the center of the cabin, chest rising and falling, gaze steady. Sarah dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him. Eli joined her. Together, they held the dog who had saved their lives twice, maybe 3 times, maybe more than they'd ever know. Colonel Martinez entered minutes later, all composed with silver streaks in her hair and the kind of energy that filled a room. So, she said, kneeling to Scout's level, "You're the one who just broke the internet." Martinez looked at Sarah. "Your family's safe," she said. "But you should know there's more to this." Sarah nodded. "We figured." "Scout's not the only prototype," the colonel said, "and someone else just escaped." Sarah's blood ran cold. Eli looked up. "Another dog." Martinez shook her head. "No, this time it wasn't a dog." Scout didn't move when Colonel Martinez said the words, "This time, it wasn't a dog." Instead, he lowered his head slightly just a flicker, then stepped closer to Eli, brushing his side against the boy's leg. Sarah noticed it instantly. That protective stance, the quiet alertness. He knew what was coming. He'd known it before any of them. Colonel Martinez stood, brushing ash from her jacket sleeve. 3 days ago, a 12-year-old girl named Lucy Chen went missing from a children's hospital outside of Carson Ridge. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Missing or taken? Unknown, the colonel replied, but she disappeared the same night as another breach. Facility 12, different location, same program. This time, the prototype wasn't canine. Eli tilted his head. Then what was it? Martinez hesitated for the briefest moment. Wolf-based, genetically augmented, enhanced cognitive function, designed for advanced search and rescue in hostile environments. Sarah's stomach turned. So, not a weapon. That's what she was meant to be, the colonel said. But like Scout, she made her own choice. Later that evening, Sarah watched Scout pacing near the window, just like he had the first night in the cabin. She saw something new in his movements, not anxiety this time, but readiness, anticipation. He knew she was coming somehow. He felt it. Eli sat on the floor, sketching on a notepad. "What do you think she'll be like?" "Who?" Sarah asked, pouring water into the kettle. "The other one, the wolf." Sarah took a slow breath. "I don't know. But if she helped a child escape a place like the one Scout came from, then I think we're about to meet someone who's both dangerous and good." Eli nodded, solemn, like Scout. The knock at the cabin door came just past midnight. Not a bang, not a crash, a soft, tentative tap. Scout was already at the door, tail low, ears forward. Sarah opened it slowly. On the porch stood a girl, dark hair, frail shoulders, big eyes that held more grief than a child should carry. Beside her was a creature that looked like it had stepped out of a fabled tall, lithe, silver-gray fur marked with scars. Not quite dog, not fully wolf. Her eyes, amber like Scout's, locked onto Sarah's face with unflinching clarity. She made no sound, didn't move, didn't blink. "Are you Scout's mom?" the girl asked quietly. Sarah blinked. "Excuse me," the girl pointed. To the creature beside her, "Luna told me. She said Scout was free now. She said maybe we could be too." Eli appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The girl smiled. "Hi, I'm Lucy," he waved. "I'm Eli." Scout stepped forward, and for the first time, Sarah saw something that stunned her emotion recognition, and maybe something like awe pass across the wolf prototype's face. Luna, she didn't bark, didn't whimper. Instead, she stepped toward Scout slowly, cautiously, until they stood nose to nose in the center of the room. They didn't touch, not at first. They just stared, and then, ever so gently, Luna lowered her head and placed her muzzle against Scout's. A long, quiet moment passed between them. And in that moment, something unspoken changed the air in the room. The two creatures created in silence, trained in isolation, and shaped for control stood there exchanging what could only be described as language. Soft vocalizations, light gestures, movements that felt more like conversation than instinct. "They're talking," Lucy said, sitting beside Eli on the couch. "She's telling him what happened." "Do you understand her?" Sarah asked. Lucy nodded. "Not always with words, but I feel it. Like how you can tell someone's mad even when they're smiling." Sarah knelt in front of her. "What did they do to you, Lucy?" The girl looked down at her feet. "They said I was sick. I have something in my DNA that made me a good candidate. So they were going to ... fix me, but not really fix, just ... change." She looked up, "But I didn't want to be changed. I just wanted to go home." Sarah felt a lump rise in her throat. "So Luna helped you?" "She broke her training," Lucy said. "She was supposed to protect the lab. Instead, she protected me." Scout and Luna lay near the fire now, side by side like old companions, neither fully asleep, just resting. Watching. Sarah and Colonel Martinez spoke on the porch, voices low. "So, what happens now?" Sarah asked. Martinez sighed. "Legally, neither of them exist, but politically, the world's watching." What Scouty uploading that date did triggered investigations, lawsuits, hearings. But the people behind these programs aren't going quietly. You think they'll come for her too? I know they will. Inside, Eli and Lucy sat, under a blanket, sipping hot chocolate. "She's like you," Eli said. Lucy looked at Luna. "Yeah, but she's still scared. She doesn't trust people. She trusts you," Eli said. "Only because I didn't try to fix her," Lucy replied. "I just let her be who she is." Eli smiled. "That's what Mommy did with Scout." Later that night, Sarah found Luna watching the fire. Alone, she knelt beside her, keeping a respectful distance. "You protected Lucy," she said softly, "and you brought her here. You knew we'd understand." Luna didn't respond, but her ears flicked once. Sarah smiled. "You're not just an experiment. You're family now." Behind her, Scout stepped into view, and together, the two creatures lay down again, closer this time. Two weapons that chose not to be weapons, to living beings that chose family. The next few days passed like something between a dream and a miracle. Lucy's health slowly stabilized. Sarah set up a makeshift medical routine using supplies from town. Colonel Martinez arranged for anonymous paperwork to protect their identities, while Scout and Luna, understanding more than any dog or wolf, should settled into their new rhythm. At night, they alternated watch duty. During the day, they followed Eli and Lucy like shadows, and always they listened to everything. Then, on the fourth morning, Sarah received a message from Martinez. New breach reported. Prototype missing. Not a canine this time. They're escalating. Attached was a photo, a creature that didn't belong in any natural habitat. A dog. Not a wolf, not even fully animal. Sarah stared at the screen. Whatever was coming next. It wasn't just dangerous. It was designed to hunt. That evening, Lucy stood on the back porch, Luna beside her. "You think there are more like us?" she asked. Eli joined her. Scout at his side. "Maybe, but not all of them will choose the good path." Lucy nodded slowly. "Then maybe we help them find it." Eli looked up at Scout, then at Luna. "Maybe we were all supposed to find each other?" Sarah watched them from inside. And she believed him. Not just because it was a nice thought, but because deep down, it felt true. These weren't accidents, they were choices, every one of them. The snow came early that year. It dusted the mountain cabin like powdered sugar, softening the rough edges of the world. The trees, the porch, even the old generator shed wore a clean white coat. From inside the warm living room, it looked like a picture book safe, silent, perfect. But Sarah knew better. She stood at the window, cradling a cup of tea in both hands, watching as Scout and Luna took their usual morning patrol through the tree line. They moved with practiced precision, fluid, alert, synchronized in a way that only came from shared history and mutual trust. They weren't patrolling for coyotes or bears. They were watching for something far more dangerous. It had been 2 weeks since Lucy and Luna arrived, 2 weeks since the government facility breach that brought them here. 2 weeks since Colonel Martinez had sent that last message, new prototype missing. Unknown classification, possibly tracking Scout's signature. It kept Sarah up at night, because while she and Eli and now Lucy were living, breathing proof that love could grow even in the wreckage. She also knew the people behind Scout's collar and Luna's design weren't done. They hadn't stopped, they were just getting smarter inside the cabin. The kids were sitting cross-legged in front of the fireplace, building a castle out of books and pillows. Eli was explaining how the drawbridge worked. Lucy was laughing at his improvised trapdoor. Scout sat behind them like a stone lion head high, ears tuned to every sound outside. Luna, quieter but no less watchful, curled beside the back door, her eyes flicking toward the tree line every few seconds. Sarah joined the kids on the rug and smiled. You know, most kids just play with Legos. Legos don't have moats, Eli said proudly. Or anti-drone turrets, Lucy added with a straight face. Sarah blinked. I'm sorry, anti-what? That afternoon, Colonel Martinez arrived by helicopter. Not loud, not dramatic, just low enough to keep a low profile. She stepped onto the porch bundled in her Army SID jacket, her silver hair braided tightly behind. Her head Scout greeted her with a single bark. Just one, then returned to Eli's side. Luna didn't move, but her gaze followed every motion. Still watching, Martinez said as she stepped inside, still guarding. Sarah nodded. They never stop. Martinez didn't sit. She paced the living room once before finally speaking. Confirmed it. A new prototype escaped containment in Arizona. Fully operational, aggressive, capable of tracking genetic signatures of former X-Series models. Scout and Luna. They were being hunted. Sarah sat down slowly. Eli stopped playing. Lucy stood up, her hand instinctively reaching for Luna's fur. What's it designed to do? Sarah asked. Martinez hesitated. Terminate. No retrieval protocols, just elimination. Think of it as a failsafe, something they built in case their other creations ever went rogue. Sarah's blood ran cold. They built a killer to clean up their mistakes. Martinez nodded, and it's headed this way. That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket. Scout beside her, Luna at her feet. The wind carried whispers through the trees, but the air felt heavier, now charged, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Inside, Eli and Lucy were asleep in their shared loft. Sarah had pushed the twin beds together and covered them with extra quilts. Two kids from two different stories, brought together by something neither of them asked for, yet they belonged to each other now, like family. Scout's ears twitched. A branch snapped in the distance. He rose slowly, head low, teeth barely visible. Behind tight lips, Luna stood a heartbeat later, her back arched, tail stiff. They weren't afraid, but they were ready. Sarah rose to her feet. It's here, isn't it? Scout looked at her just once, and that was all the answer she needed. It happened fast. The creature moved like smoke through the tree's massive, four-legged black fur, rippling like oil. Its eyes glowed pale blue, and its mouth held no expression. Only purpose. Termination. Scout launched forward without hesitation, Luna flanking him from the side. No barks, no growls. They didn't need to announce themselves. They just ran. Sarah grabbed the shotgun from behind the doorknot. That she thought it would help much and radioed Martinez, who was already suiting up in the cabin's guest room. It's here, she said. Scout and Luna are engaging. I'll meet you outside in 60 seconds, Martinez replied. The fight wasn't loud. It wasn't Hollywood. It was fast, brutal, tactical. Scout used the trees for cover, drawing the creature's focus. Luna hit from the sides, fast and silent, always just out of reach. Sarah could barely follow it, all movements too fast for human eyes, but she saw blood dark and sticky splash onto the snow. Not from Scout, not from Luna. From it, and for the first time, Sarah saw the creature hesitate, just slightly, just long enough. Scout lunged, Luna flanked. They hit it together, one from the front, one from behind. The creature fell, hard, and didn't get up by the time Martinez and her team reached the clearing. The snow had turned crimson. Scout limped toward Sarah, his right shoulder marked with a deep gash. Luna followed, panting, her flank scratched but otherwise whole. They were alive, and the killer was done. 2 days later, the government officially declared the project terminated. Martinez had done what she promised, delivered the truth to the right people. Congress launched a full investigation. The facility that created Scout, Luna, and the thing they fought was permanently shut down. Everyone involved in the Black Initiative faced indictment. But Sarah didn't care about politics. She cared about what came next. Spring arrived, slow and soft. Scout's wounds healed faster than anyone expected. Luna's energy returned within a week. Lucy was enrolled in the local school under a new name. She made friends. Eli started drawing again pictures of Scout and Luna, guarding castles, playing in snow, standing between the world and the people. They were free. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains and the cabin glowed with golden light, Sarah stood on the porch, watching the kids chase each other in the grass. Scout lay nearby, his tail thumping lazily against the deck. Luna was at the edge of the woods, sniffing the breeze, but relaxed. No more threats, just peace. Sarah turned to Martinez, who'd returned for a check-in visit. "They're happy," she said. "Earned it," Martinez replied. "Do you think they'll ever really be safe?" The colonel looked out across the meadow. "I think safety isn't a place, it's a choice. Every day, and you made the right one." Sarah nodded slowly. "We all did." That night, Eli curled up in bed with Scout stretched beside him, just like old times. "Do you think he dreams?" he asked Sarah as she tucked him in. "I think he dreams of you," she whispered, brushing his hair back. "Of chasing sticks, of being free, and of being loved." Eli asked. Sarah smiled. Most of all, that downstairs Luna rested near the fireplace. Lucy sat beside her, reading aloud from a picture book. In that small, quiet room, there were no secrets left. No collars, no missions, just people two-legged and four who had been hurt, discarded, transformed, and who chose to be more than what the world tried to make them. They chose family, and somehow that made all the difference. Thank you for following this journey of love, loyalty, and freedom. Now we want to hear from you. If you could choose your family not by blood, but by bond, who would you choose? And what makes someone truly yours? Let us know in the comments below. And from all of us at Brave Animals, thank you for believing in the stories that matter. The snow came early that year. It dusted the mountain cabin like powdered sugar, softening the rough edges of the world. The trees, the porch, even the old generator shed wore a clean white coat. From inside the warm living room, it looked like a picture book safe, silent, perfect. But Sarah knew better. She stood at the window, cradling a cup of tea in both hands, watching as Scout and Luna took their usual morning patrol through the tree line. They moved with practiced precision, fluid, alert, synchronized in a way that only came from shared history and mutual trust. They weren't patrolling for coyotes or bears. They were watching for something far more dangerous. It had been 2 weeks since Lucy and Luna arrived, 2 weeks since the government facility breach that brought them here, 2 weeks since Colonel Martinez had sent that last message, new prototype missing, unknown classification, possibly tracking Scout's signature. It kept Sarah up at night, because while she and Eli and now Lucy were living, breathing proof that love could grow even in the wreckage, she also knew the people behind Scout's collar and Luna's design weren't done. They hadn't stopped, they were just getting smarter inside the cabin. The kids were sitting cross-legged in front of the fireplace, building a castle out of books and pillows. Eli was explaining how the drawbridge worked. Lucy was laughing at his improvised trapdoor. Scout sat behind them like a stone lion head, high ears tuned to every sound outside Luna. Quieter, but no less watchful, curled beside the back door, her eyes flicking toward the tree line every few seconds, Sarah joined the kids on the rug and smiled. "You know, most kids just play with Legos. Legos don't have moats," Eli said proudly. "Or anti-drone turrets," Lucy added with a straight face. Sarah blinked. "I'm sorry, anti-what?" That afternoon, Colonel Martinez arrived by helicopter. Not loud, not dramatic, just low enough to keep a low profile. She stepped onto the porch, bundled in her Army SID jacket, her silver hair braided tightly behind. Her head. Scout greeted her with a single bark, just one, then returned to Eli's side. Luna didn't move, but her gaze followed every motion. "Still watching," Martinez said as she stepped inside. "Still guarding." Sarah nodded. They never stop. Martinez didn't sit. She paced the living room once before finally speaking. Confirmed it. A new prototype escaped containment in Arizona. Fully operational, aggressive, capable of tracking genetic signatures of former X-Series models. Scout and Luna, they were being hunted. Sarah sat down slowly. Eli stopped playing. Lucy stood up, her hand instinctively reaching for Luna's fur. "What's it designed to do?" Sarah asked. Martinez hesitated. "Terminate. No retrieval protocols, just elimination." Think of it as a failsafe, something they built in case their other creations ever went rogue. Sarah's blood ran cold. They built a killer to clean up their mistakes. Martinez nodded, and it's headed this way. That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, Scout beside her, Luna at her feet. The wind carried whispers through the trees, but the air felt heavier now, like the forest itself was holding its breath. Inside, Eli and Lucy were asleep in their shared loft. Sarah had pushed the twin beds together and covered them with extra quilts. Two kids from two different stories, brought together by something neither of them asked for, yet they belonged to each other now, like family. Scout's ears twitched. A branch snapped in the distance. He rose slowly, head low, teeth barely visible. Behind tight lips, Luna stood a heartbeat later, her back arched, tail stiff. They weren't afraid, but they were ready. Sarah rose to her feet. "It's here, isn't it?" Scout looked at her just once, and that was all the answer she needed. It happened fast. The creature moved like smoke through the tree's massive, four-legged black fur rippling like oil. Its eyes glowed pale blue, and its mouth held no expression. Only purpose.termination. Scout launched forward without hesitation, Luna flanking him from the side. No barks, no growls. They didn't need to announce themselves, they just ran. Sarah grabbed the shotgun from behind the doorknot that she thought it would help much and radioed Martinez, who was already suiting up in the cabin's guest room. "It's here," she said. "Scout and Luna are engaging. I'll meet you outside in 60 seconds, Martinez replied. The fight wasn't loud. It wasn't Hollywood. It was fast, brutal, tactical. Scout used the trees for cover, drawing the creature's focus. Luna hit from the sides, fast and silent, always just out of reach. Sarah could barely follow it all movements, too fast for human eyes, but she saw blood, dark and sticky, splash onto the snow. Not from Scout, not from Luna, from it and four. The first time, Sarah saw the creature hesitate. Just slightly, just long enough, Scout lunged. Luna flanked. They hit it together, one from the front, one from behind. The creature fell hard and didn't get up by the time Martinez and her team reached the clearing. The snow had turned crimson. Scout limped toward Sarah, his right shoulder marked with a deep gash. Luna followed, panting, her flank scratched but otherwise whole. They were alive, and the killer was done. 2 days later, the government officially declared the project terminated. Martinez had done what she promised, delivered the truth to the right people. Congress launched a full investigation. The facility that created Scout, Luna, and the thing they fought was permanently shut down. Everyone involved in the Black Initiative faced indictment, but Sarah didn't care about politics. She cared about what came next. Spring arrived, slow and soft. Scout's wounds healed faster than anyone expected. Luna's energy returned within a week. Lucy was enrolled in the local school under a new name. She made friends. Eli started drawing again pictures of Scout and Luna, guarding castles, playing in snow, standing between the world and the people. They were free. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains and the cabin glowed with golden light, Sarah stood on the porch, watching the kids chase each other in the grass. Scout lay nearby, his tail thumping lazily against the deck. Luna was at the edge of the woods, sniffing the breeze, but relaxed. No more threats, just peace. Sarah turned to Martinez, who'd returned for a check-in visit. "They're happy," she said. "Earned it," Martinez replied. "Do you think they'll ever really be safe?" The colonel looked out across the meadow. "I think safety isn't a place. It's a choice, every day, and you made the right one." Sarah nodded slowly. "We all did." That night, Eli curled up in bed with Scout stretched beside him, just like old times. "Do you think he dreams?" he asked Sarah as she tucked him in. "I think he dreams of you," she whispered, brushing his hair back. "Of chasing sticks, of being free, and of being loved." Eli asked. Sarah smiled. Most of all, that downstairs, Luna rested near the fireplace. Lucy sat beside her, reading aloud from a picture book. In that small, quiet room, there were no secrets left. No collars, no missions, just people two-legged and four who had been hurt, discarded, transformed, and who chose to be more than what the world tried to make them. They chose family. And somehow, That made all the difference. Thank you for following this journey of love, loyalty, and freedom. Now, we want to hear from you. If you could choose your family not by blood, but by bond, who would you choose? And what makes someone truly yours? Let us know in the comments below. And from all of us at Brave Animals, thank you for believing in the stories that matter.